Have you ever found yourself watching a movie, TV show, anime, or even playing a video game and thinking to yourself, hey, the music in this is pretty dope. I often end up learning how to play many, analyzing it, and even sometimes just asking, why this? I don't mean like, why this, like, why this? Most of the times it actually ends up being like, oh, why this? In my case, I'm a huge nerd. I don't think you can really tell. I'm also into philosophy and psychology, so ever since I found out that composing something to accompany another piece of media most of the times means developing music ideas that not only match but can even represent specific characters, moods, events, vibes, really whatever you can think of, something inside of me just clicked. This is pretty cool. I wish I had composed this or thought of that. I wonder what I would have figured out instead. And so the idea of creating a video series out of this with multiple videos about many different movies, TV shows. So if you enjoyed the video, subscribe and stay tuned for more. With that being said, we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. So come along, join me for this hypothetical adventure where a hypothetical James Gunn hypothetically hires me to compose this hypothetical theme for the Guardians 3. I know, I think it's a bit of a stretch too. Though before we get through to this, everyone can tell that I'm not really a renowned composer, but I'm even less trying to infer that I would do work or anything in any way better or superior than any of the composers or even compositions that we mentioned. This is purely a fun thought process exercise that I thought to share with you guys, especially because this is the fun thing about art and artists. No two pieces of art are in any way the same, and any hypothetical likeness is really negligible when it comes to things like this, providing the proper respect that they deserve. Now you could be thinking to yourself, you know, Mark, this is all cool and dandy, but you can just write out any riff that you think sounds cool and say, oh, this is the Guardians theme. I thought I'd make it a little bit more challenging and a little bit more fun for you guys. If you are a composer yourself, or if you follow any composers, you might have noticed some similar comments about the role of the composer. Because the role of the composer isn't to just selfishly accompany the movie or the TV show simply with any piece of music that you think fits the vibe of the movie. Though that does happen sometimes when there's a good connection between the director and the composer. Many of the times it is the director's job to tell the composer what sort of vibe it is they're looking for, or even sometimes what genre and orchestration, and even tempo. Most of the times it ends up being more of a collaborative effort between the director and the composer, and even sometimes producers and studio executives when there's too many hands stirring the pot. So I decided to mimic that a little bit here. To be honest, I haven't really done much research on whether James Gunn is a very controlling director in that sense, so the way I thought we could do this is to spin the wheel. Trust me, I think it's gonna get good. As you guys might be able to see, there's a bunch of different options for how controlling the director might be for this movie. There is one where it's the composer's choice, where I can just have free roam, just 10% of me getting that one. But then in the rest of the options, there's plenty of degrees on difficulty and added challenges that we can get throughout the way. So let's digitally spin this digital wheel and see where we end up. Ooh. Alright, this is interesting. This option means that this hypothetical James Gunn we're working with is gonna have something in particular in this score that he's looking for. Since we can't talk to this hypothetical James Gunn, we're gonna do another wheel. And this wheel has a couple of challenges that we could go for. Let's just spin the wheel again and see what sort of restriction might challenge us along the way. Ooh. Okay, so we got vibe/nonsense. What sort of challenge is this? Well, the truth is, many of the times when you're working with someone that's a non-musician, they might give you directions that aren't really in musical terms. And to be fair, that's actually a set of directions that can be more helpful than actually giving you, like, musical directions. Because if the director tells you, like, I enjoyed your score, but it is a little bit too sad, you as a composer should be able to identify what it is that makes your piece sad and maybe tone it down a little bit. Or in some cases, the director might come at you and be like, hey, this needs to be a little bit more dark, or a little bit more bright, or maybe a little bit more tense. Even though those are comments or critiques that you might have to interpret, it's better to interpret and communicate with your director than for a director to go out of his way to tell you, like, hey, your piece is cool, but it's a little bit too minor. Why don't you go to like a major chord? Even though that can be one of the possible challenges that we have in there. But anywho, first to look for the specific vibe or nonsense that we're looking for, we're going to go look for a random word generator. And we're just gonna go out of our way to generate a random word, and that will be the vibe that our hypothetical James Gunn was gonna be giving us. Okay, we got heavenly. Well, heavenly is for sure an interesting one. I mean, these are the Guardians of the Galaxy, and we have established that gods like Thor are kind of like aliens, and they live in like their own special realm in space. So Heavenly could make sense, to have something that's more religiously heavenly, godlike, for people who come out from space. I think that could be a pretty neat. But well, with that being said, I'm going to start thinking on notes and what could have a heavenly quality. Whenever I have any stuff worked out, I'll come back to you guys. Okay, so about a week has gone by. I wasn't expecting it to take so long. Things were just super busy at work, so I kind of struggled with making up specific time to just work on this. But the cool part is, it wasn't exactly due to lack of ideas. I think I pretty much immediately got this idea. And to be honest, that isn't a very polished idea, but it was something to get us started with. And this is a very important tip that I have for all of you guys, which is, even if you guys don't have something that works 100% when you're doing your own song or something like that, record it a little bit. There isn't really a right or wrong. I wasn't really worried on trying to compose something that was like very playable by an orchestra. I was just trying to hash ideas down. Then later on during the process, we can figure out if there's something we need to change or not. Taking the idea that we had before, I just laid out that chord progression. So this is what just the strings sound like. Which sound alright by themselves, but then I started thinking, what if we can do a bit of a call and response thing between different instrument families? Not only would it fit well, because in this case we're doing like a theme that is supposed to represent a team, a group of characters. If you do them in a specific way that matches the tone of the characters, specific instrument groups can really represent individual members of the team when you have like an overall group theme with like the whole orchestra. So then it was just a matter of adding things, put everything together. The prototype for an idea sounded about this. I went for like a really long reverb for the horns this time. It just matched the vibe in this case. Heavenly, very regal. The horns that are being helped out here by the woodwinds, and having the choir that gives us like a good foundation. The choirs that are doing something similar to the strings and something similar to the horns, but they're doing something a bit different. And I didn't go for like ahs or oohs. I specifically went for a more like sound. It has a more like meditative sort of quality I felt like would add to the vibe. I purposely went for something that kind of sounds like disconnected, like not all the voices are entering and leaving the chords and sustained notes at the same time, because even though this is a working team of heroes, each character has a very strong personality, and even though they are a family, they fight like families do, and they're very much heroes and people trying to do the right thing, but they're kind of rebel-y and hide their emotions between jokes and doing even things that they don't believe are right because it's just easier. So that kind of disconnected nature between the different characters and between the different instruments was something that I thought was important to represent through the theme. And it was just a matter of adding a little bit of rhythm to it, so we have like the more staccato strings in unison with the woodwinds, giving us a little bit of a different flavor, trying to outline the chords we had mentioned before. On the rhythm section here, it's something simple, then later on we do add more stuff. I didn't want something that was too messy, but I also didn't want just something that was like a rock beat, like kick on 1 and then snare on 3. Obviously this idea is very unpolished. There's like basically no automation, there's no compressors or EQs or anything like that. I was just trying to get something basic out here. And then I moved out to have like an actual idea of like what would a whole track dedicated to what the Guardians are all about sound like. You still want to incorporate those themes and those motifs, but what is the sort of sound, musical language and vocabulary that we're going to speak in this movie? If you guys have any ideas for other sorts of movies and themes that you guys would like me to do, let me know. I would never in my own ideas think like, how would I do a cool song that would represent thematically a group of superheroes that are kind of like a band of misfits that become their own family, up in space with aliens and a raccoon and a talking tree. That sounds heavenly. I wouldn't go that way, but I would be lying if I didn't say that I'm very proud of how this sounds, and you know, in another circumstance, I might even take this idea and like sketch it out and make a full song, a full other idea. I would think it would be really cool. I'm sure you guys could figure out like way more cool, fun, and engaging ideas, and even better sounding ideas. If you guys want to try this out on your own, do it and put it in the comment section or tag me on Instagram and share it, because I'll share it too, because I'm very interested to see like anyone develop their own creative skills with a silly idea like this one. So I had to pull up my big boy pants and be like, this is cool, but this is going up to the end of the track because this is not something I can use. Taking into consideration he has both produced, song written for, and played live with Marilyn Manson, I don't think he has anything to prove for. Phrygian thing, harmonic minery, kind of in like a key rock and rollish sort of a thing. If it doesn't sound heavenly, it should sound kind of hellish, right? So cue the drum roll and the memes, but what sounds hellish? I'm only really using 2 plugins. I've been a fan of his since I was a kid with the live action Scooby-Doo movies. I didn't even remember how it actually sounded. If you guys enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, turn on notifications, leave a comment, do all those cool things. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!